Hi, Matt. I'm back. Alex Black, Executive Chairman of Rio2 Limited after a 18-month hiatus. My last interview was here 18 months ago when I had the bad news of us being stopped in Chile, and now we've been allowed to go forward. So Rio2 has the Fenix Gold Project in Chile, 4.8 million ounces of M&I resources, a reserve base of 1.7 million ounces, I think it is, in a starter project. And we're a team of mine builders with a track record of doing so. And happy to talk about what's happened over the last 18 months.
He is back, and we're glad to have you back as well. It's been a tough 18 months, I'm sure, waiting for this moment, but it's finally happened. It's all happened. Tell us all about it.
Well, I guess emotion-wise, I'm not happy. I'm relieved, and I think our whole team is relieved. But we're certainly not happy with what's happened. And what happened yesterday with the approval simply vindicated everything that we did in our EIA back a few years ago. So, unfortunately, what happened to us essentially was federal government interference in a regional process, and that's what happened. And here we are. So what I do have to say is that, and I've said this on social media a lot, is our technical team and our management team did a fantastic job in getting us to this point. And all our advisors did a great job. Independent legal counsel in Chile. We had two political lobby groups made up of ministers from various previous governments in Chile. They did a fantastic job. So, it was a team effort. We went through a catastrophic period there whereby we had, when the decision against the project was made back in the middle of last year, we had just employed 80 people to join us at the operational and technical level, and we had to let them go. We had to cut back on our G&A within Rio2. That was tough. Some people left, but a lot stayed behind and on reduced wages, etc. So, we did our best to hang on. And let me tell you, it was touch and go there. First couple of months, I would say the sensation was shock and confusion because we were on our way. We had done a lot of things from a pre-project construction perspective. We had spent money. We had a lot of creditors on our balance sheet, and we had to clear all that to get through this, and we did it. Came to terms with creditors, sorted that out. We sold a couple of non-core royalties for $5 million. That was really good. We clawed back some VAT tax in Chile, which was about $5+ million. So one of the things that I guess is a great achievement is we didn't have to go to the market during that process. And we wouldn't have wanted to anyway, because our share price was off 80% from where it was before the decision.
Okay, tell me this, because there's a few things I want to go through. I want to understand, if you don't mind. There's a process you've been through for the environmental impact assessment, EIA. There's the damage done, and how do you kind of get back on your feet? So surviving is one thing, and then obviously I think people looking to the future and what those kind of moving parts are that you're very much focused on to get back to where you were. And then I think so ultimately just money, okay? Because like I say, damage was done. You had a lot of the financing in place. You had people lined up. You knew how you're putting this thing together. As you say, a bunch of mine builders. So you knew how to do what you needed to do, but that's been sort of knocked off the table, I suspect. So can we just start with the process bit for us? So is the approval based on any conditions precedent? Are you being forced to behave any differently than you were intending to, or that you think is reasonable, but you've been kind of, I don't know, gun to your head time? I mean, how do you explain it?
So what we did for essentially the first 12 months of the appeal process was we went back and forth with the various ministries on technical undertakings that we were prepared to do over and above what we had promised in the EIA. They were essentially the same things, but just embellished, more work, et cetera, and 3 submissions we did, and that was, if you want to talk about conditions, it's really the approval of those undertakings. Now, unfortunately, the way the process works in Chile is that we received our approval yesterday, but we don't know which undertakings, whether they are all of them or some of them or whatever, are part of what we need to do going forward. But it doesn't take anything away from the approval. It's not as though it's a conditional approval. It's approved with our promise to do the technical undertakings. For example, everything, from what I understand, and we'll find out in the next few days when we get the list, is everything is centered around chinchillas. When they brought up the issue with camelids and collaring in them and all that, and our response to that, and our pushback to that, they took camelids off the table. Right? So now all of a sudden camelids don't mean anything, but chinchillas do. So everything revolves around chinchillas, and part of our undertakings are, extended monitoring, setting up a refuge for chinchillas in Copiapó, so that if we find chinchillas that are displaced from their natural habitat, etc., we can try and return them to their natural habitat. And remember, they live in a valley away from the project. They don't live at the project. If we find any that we can't find a home for, we'll take them to the refuge, and then we'll go from there. And we'll work with certain independent experts in regards to that. So that's one of the undertakings that we've agreed to do. Comes with a cost, but it's not extraordinary, and it's just something we're prepared to do. So that's the process that we went through. And your other questions, because you had a heap of them.
Yeah, no, I know. No, that's really it. It's just trying to understand about conditions precedent or not. Right? I.e., are the conditions financially prohibitive? But it's a question of it's that or nothing, or were these things that you were going to do anyway, but you've got to kind of guarantee that you do them anyway?
Well, they're things that we would have done anyway, but we've had to extend or enlarge the scope of the work that we would have done. So we're not against that. We're happy to comply, and that's what we've done. So I just can't categorically say what the list of undertakings that they want us to do as part of construction and mine operation. I can't tell you that because we just don't have it. I mean, that's just the system. And
you're not expecting any shocks. There's not going to be something left field and say you need to build a village or a school.
But we also have the right, if there are any crazy things in those in that list, we do have the right to respond to that, right? So, but that doesn't prevent the project from going ahead, right? This is like technical administrative stuff that goes on in the background.
Okay. Then tell me this, just again, sticking with the process that you've been through, the experience that you've been through, not just the last 18 months of waiting for this moment, but the time before that when you were actually writing and the application for the EIA. Some of it's local, provincial, and some of it's federal that you've been dealing with. Does this process put you off doing business, or should it put people off doing business in Chile? Is Chile still pro-mining?
Oh, I think Chile's pro-mining. I think it hasn't got a choice, because this year it's going to go, the GDP is going to go negative this year. And it'll be the first time for a long time since COVID. I think it went negative in COVID, but everybody went negative in COVID. So there's big pressure on the government to keep business going, and obviously the big engine room is mining. So no, I don't call Chile a bad place to do business or off limits from a business perspective. What our case, and we were only, there's only a handful of mining projects in this sort of suspension mode. One of them was Los Bronces, which was approved back in April. Anglo-American $3.2 billion expansion of the Los Bronces mine. Now, we were completely different to that because Los Bronces was approved by the authorities. The EIA was approved, but external parties, social and environmental, objected and appealed. And so that put Los Bronces in this appeal process. And it went to the Committee of Ministers and they allowed it to go through on a number of undertakings that they would do. And I think that's been spelled out in the press in the past. In our case, we got disapproved or declined, and we objected to that decision, not third parties, because unlike Los Bronces, from a environmental NGO perspective, from a social perspective, community perspective, business perspective, there was no objections and everybody wants this mine to go ahead. So we're completely different to that. So we objected to the decision, and what we declared was this was government interference in a regional process, because getting an EIA in Chile happens at the regional level, not at the federal level, regional. So we got stopped by federal interference, whatever you want to call it, and we objected to that. And then we got to the end of the road and we demonstrated to the various ministries that were present at the meeting that we were in fact correct and this project should go ahead.
Okay. So not much has changed from your end in the sense of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, but you need to get some guarantees about it.
Sorry, I just want to go on about that.
Yeah.
As a result of our case, and probably a couple of other cases that's happened in the past, they are going to disband the Committee of Ministers. That tribunal is not going to happen anymore. If you get stopped and you get objected to, or you want to object to your project being declined, or somebody wants to object to your project, you go to court. You go to a judicial court. All right? So they're going to cut out the Committee of Ministers. And the Committee of Ministers was a rabble, really, because at the end of the day, you never knew what the hell was going to happen. There was no prescription as to, okay, we have to hear cases and we've got to get them out the door in such and such a time, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing. We could still be sitting there. That was it. Yeah, we pushed so hard. I can tell you, the technical team pushed so hard. Our advisors pushed so hard to get us on the slate before Christmas. Otherwise, we would have gone into next year. And nobody would have cared. Nobody.
So does that mean in the future? So there's a bit more about general Chile mining, etc. There's rule of law, and there's a mining code. In the future, if companies have to go to court, you expect it'll be more logically applied rather than it seems to be a bit of emotional.
After all this
component to this.
After all this experience. Unfortunately, it was prescribed that if you want to appeal, you have to go to the Committee of Ministers, and then if you're not happy with that result, you can go to judicial.
Right.
So we were prescribed. But if you had given me a choice at that time, I would have gone to judicial straight away.
Right. Okay.
Because this was a circus. This whole process was a circus. We never knew what was going to happen to us. Right. We didn't know. Some people on social media have said, "Oh, you guys knew this because the internal letter was dated the 5th of November, so obviously that leaked out and all that." No, we didn't know until the day that we announced that the meeting was going to be held on the 20th, which was 2 days before.
Yeah,
that this thing was going to happen. So no, we didn't know, and it was a vacuum that we were operating in. I can tell you.
Right. Okay.
It was
very frustrating. Very frustrating for you. Very frustrating, certainly for all shareholders. I know you're a big one, but for all shareholders, it not knowing this. Because coming to the second point I made, which is about value destruction. This process, one, has obviously destroyed a lot of the value of the company. Down at I think sort of 12 cents at one point. Back up 38 today, but obviously still nowhere near where you were, pre this announcement, nor where you think it should be, given the size of the potential of the project in front of you. I get all of that. Don't need to say that to me, but what do you do about it? Okay, that's the thing that people are looking to hear. You're going to need to. Well, what are you going to need to do? Tell us what the moving parts are that you think you need to focus on.
Well, I think, hopefully what this whole process has told everybody about Rio2 is we don't give up, all right? We don't give up. We put our head down, our ass up, and we go, right? So we're just going to go, right? We're going to go as hard as we can. We're working with Endeavour Financial on the financing. We put out updated feasibility study numbers in September, October. The project valuation has gone up, costs have gone up, but the project valuation's gone up, including metal prices have gone up. We did all our financial metrics at $1,750 gold. We did our pit optimizations at $1,650 gold. Don't ask me about where gold's going because I'm a mining guy, mining engineer. That's not for me to say, but we're in a good environment, right? And our AISC went from about $1,000 to $1,250, which is where everybody is today anyway. Remembering we're trucking water, which is not optimal. but that's all built in, the fuel costs of getting the water to site, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got a robust project. The MPV went from 125 million to over 200 million with all those variations. And that feasibility study is on our website. You can find the link there. So the project's as robust as it ever was for a small starter project. What we will be doing going into the new year is we'll be doing a study on the expansion of the project. Not that we're going to flip to the expansion. No. I mean, the expansion comes with its own set of complications because it involves, and it won't involve water from the ground, because in Chile, forget about it. Prior government, this government, whatever governments you're going to talk about in the future, you will not be able to get permits to pull water from the ground in Chile. So it'll be desal. There are a couple of desal providers in around Copiapó that are working on projects to provide commercialized desal, not to one mine, but to several mines. And we're talking to those people. So we'll build them into the cost. So cost of building a pipe from Copiapó to the project, they may flip the CapEx for that. We may team up on that CapEx. I don't know. But all the costs will be analyzed. What will definitely happen is our cost of water will come down significantly, right? Because right now it's a premium because of we're tracking it there, and because of fuel costs. So, we're going to show a much bigger project and much better economics. And we also talk about when that will be likely to be built. Is it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? I don't know. But we're certainly going to be building a project that trucks water in the initial stages, and it will then morph into something a lot bigger. Right. So we'll show that. We'll do that study and permitting. Right. So you get your EIA approved, but then you got to permit it. Right. So it doesn't mean that the permits can be held back because of somebody's whim or fancy. No, because you've got your EIA approved. The permits are based on the EIA. All that permitting paperwork is in place. It's ready to go. Right. So we'll be lodging that ASAP. All the sectorial permits. There's a raft of permits. There's no construction permit per se. It's a raft of 4 or 5 key permits that you can present to the banks and say, we're ready to go. And that's when the banks step in if they're UPEX.
Okay, permits. Yeah. Automatically I'm going, oh my goodness, not another permitting process. Why are these raft of permits easier to get through and less likely to, more likely to succeed? Is there any red flags that, we should be aware of?
Because the EIA approval is a key thing, and the permits are based on the EIA. So,
Okay.
it's all there. The reason, well, we're basing on the fact that all our research on projects that have been approved and have been permitted, typically the time frame is 2 to 3 months, right? Now, typically, right, because nothing's been typical about Chile in the last 2 years. So 2 to 3 months. But the other thing is the other damage that this government did to us was that this project is not going to happen, even if we wanted to, until later next year.
Why?
And the reason for that is we were always rushing to get into the summer window to do all of our key construction activities like foundations and concrete foundations, etc.
How do the seasons work in Chile up in the Atacama?
It's the opposite to North America and or the Northern Hemisphere. So right now we're going into summer, right? And had we got our approval back in April of last year, we've got the permits in place by September, October. We would have started building this project in September, October. In fact, we're probably, going into Q1 of next year, we'll probably start to see, things coming together and nearly finished. But now we're pushed out to the end of next year, right? And that's, thank you, government of Chile, right? So, but that's not a bad thing, I think, because it gives us time now from January through to that period of time to get our ducks in a row, the permits, the financing, etc., to be ready for that next September. But this project's been delayed, as we know.
Right. Okay. So timing was bad at the time, and obviously good news this week, but 6 months earlier would have been even better in terms of timing and your ability to kind of get into take advantage of
and we were being told
year.
in June,
okay,
the meeting's coming, next
right.
month,
Okay.
next month, and and we got to a point where we said, "Hey guys, you got to get a decision here because we can't wait. We're not Anglo-American. We don't have 10 other projects around the world that we can say, who cares about Chile? We'll just go and we'll focus on those projects.
Okay.
We live and die by this project."
Okay, so I hear what you're saying with regards to the damage that has been done there, and you've talked about some of the variables there. One of the variables I want to kind of dig into is financing, okay? Because you had a lot set up. When we spoke 18 months ago, you were ready to go, right? We had Wheaton on one side, BNP the other, or groups like that, and they bought into what you were doing. It's a very different world now.
Yeah.
So
it is.
What do you do about getting something like this financed?
Well, sorry, I mentioned something about getting into construction last year. In fact, it would have been the year before. I lost track of time.
Yeah.
It would have been the year before. I'd be showing you gold bars because we would have been producing gold bars since probably the middle of last year, right? Anyway, that's a sad story. But what's happened with financing? The world's changed, right? When we were doing our financing discussions back 18 months ago, we had BNP Paribas as the lead bank together with SocGen and whoever else would follow on. BNP out of business. They're out of the precious metals business. They're not doing any more. Why? Because of Pure Gold, because of Madsen, because of all those turkeys that have destroyed this business and have destroyed the sentiment for this business. And I've been very vocal about this on Twitter, is that's what's impacted us. So BNP got, SocGen are still there. SocGen would like to lead this. We've been working with Endeavour Financial, and Endeavour is our financial advisor. We have Wheaton there. We've drawn down on half the Wheaton money. We originally were promised $50 million. We drew down on 25. We got to sit down with Wheaton now that we've got approval to work out, what sort of modifications we got to do to the streaming agreement, because we haven't been able to comply with the original terms. I'm sure that will get worked out. But yeah, we're dealing with a new raft of banks. But the financing world's changed. I mean, interest rates have gone from 0 to 7% during that time as well. You can't underestimate the damage that's happened to us. Share price, time, and just the financial environment that we're in is just unbelievable. But as I said, we will never give up. We will build a gold mine at Fenix Gold. That's a given. How, when, and all the detail, I don't know.
Okay. No, I get it. I always say this to people, say you got to be at the table to play the game, and you've stayed at the table, which is great. I guess the thing that people will be, and obviously good news this week, and the project hasn't changed in the sense that the gold's still in the ground. It's still there. So lots of positives around it. What you're going to need to demonstrate for people is that the economics make sense. Gold price has gone up, but as you say, ASIC from 1,000 to 1,200. And by the way, that's a common thing. I'll kind of back you up on that. When I speak to like 8 gold producing CEOs, and they're saying that ASIC was that magical 1,000, and they're saying, well, actually, the new normal, the new reality for gold producers is around 1,400. That's the number that's been quoted at me by 8 different producing CEOs. So I think that's why I say it's a different world, right? So the gold price has gone up, but so have costs. So therefore, margin probably the same as it ever was. So there's no damage being done there in that sense. But you're still going to need to demonstrate that you can create something that's going to be economic here. So again,
I mean, the MPV based on those numbers that were released in October at the current metal price is about $500 million US. Our market value as of yesterday was about 75 million US. Right? So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And so we got some heavy lifting to do, but you can bet, because I'm a big shareholder, and also got a shout out to the shareholders, right? As you know, I've always been open to shareholders. I've always given my email address, and lots of people have been in touch with me. You cannot believe how many retail shareholders are out there that were holding our stock, and it was a big part of their pension money or whatever. It was really difficult to deal with, because I had to tell those people just to hang in there as best they can. But I don't know their lives, right? So that was a very, very difficult process for me. But you can bet that I'm not going to blow our brains out to get this thing financed and, take any financing option that gets put on the table. No, right? We are going to be very selective and do the right thing by our shareholders as far as financing this project goes.
Right. No, I get that, because the cost of that money is going to make or break for many companies. You are going to be very,
That's
very
where
careful.
A lot of companies, they can't pull on the brakes. They go, yeah, we're going to go, right? And they go and go. And then, things happen. And I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but I really believe there are some disasters still to come.
Oh, I hear you.
There are some people building mines right now that are not going to deliver, right?
Yeah,
so
I hear you.
I don't want to be one of those. I want to go, I did a great financing package, transaction, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to go sensibly forward from that point.
Okay. Okay. Well, I wish you well with that one, and I hope it's not a case of blood in the street. Hope you can have sensible discussions with sensible groups.
One thing I am is pragmatic, right? You can't make something out of nothing. So you got to take everything that's in your environment, all the conditions that are around you, and make something of it if you can, right? But if we have to defer for a period of time, we don't lose the project. The EIA is still valid. The permits are still valid. Everything's still valid. It's when we decide to press the button and say go, right, that everything starts to happen. And just to follow on, cost-wise, yes, I mean, we're trucking water from Copiapó. Obviously, our fuel bill's through the roof, but we're running a gold oxide run-of-mine heap leach project. And I was doing some research the other day. There are only 2 of those animals in the world in production that produce over 100,000 ounces a year. And that's Marigold with SSRM and Bald Mountain with Kinross. That's it. They're the only 2 run-of-mine gold heap leach projects in existence in the world today, and we're building the 3rd, right? We're building the 3rd. And when people see the economics of this expanded case, I think they'll start to see that this is going to become a very equivalent sort of looking project to those two world-class gold projects.
Well, look, appreciate you coming on, Alex, and being as frank as ever about the process and the challenges ahead. It's good to see Rio to starting, well, hopefully get the attention it deserves, and you guys, get this thing moving next year. So do stay in touch with us. Let us know how you get on through the entire process.
Yeah. And just to finish off, and if anybody wants to contact me, alex.black@rio2.com. I will always answer your emails. I'm also on Twitter. And I got to say, and I just want to take 1 second of your time, Matt, but, there's been a lot of memes on Twitter. And I think this is probably the best one I saw the other day, which was holding a $50 note. So whoever did that, I take my hat off to them. But
it's a good one. It's a good one.
I'm contactable, open. We're an open book. Our team can answer technical questions if you've got any of those. And I appreciate coming back, and hopefully we've got more to talk about over the next 12 months. Thank you.